Cheers to fall, everyone. We have actually passed into that season of fall now, and we are going to work on kind of a fall flavored project today. My name is Colleen Tauke, and I'll be your instructor for this live event. We are working on the My Maple kitchen towel, and this is the example, the sample that I made, and the instructions for this will be in the comment section, or there'll be a QR code that'll come across the bottom of our screen here so that you can just use your camera on your phone to shoot that, and it'll take you right to it. You'll enter an email address and you'll be able to download the pattern for free. We are glad that you're joining us. Remember that in the comments underneath of the video here, you can always pop in and say hello. Tell us where you're watching from. Maybe let's see, what is something you can share today? Are you the pumpkin spice person? How about that? As soon as the cooler temperatures in the Midwest in the United States start to happen, everything pumpkin flavored and pumpkin spice pops out from every warehouse, every back room, every stock room on the planet. Are you that pumpkin spice person? And I kind of think this falls into that pumpkin spice genre of projects. I'm not per se the pumpkin spice person. I kind of like my pumpkin spice in my pumpkin pie. But when I see these colors, it reminds me of my hometown. We a lot of times will say that all quilts tell a story. So the story with this one is that my hometown in north central Iowa is known as the home of the beautiful maple. And whoever platted my hometown loved maple trees. And the population of maple trees to other species or other kinds of trees in the town is pretty much probably 75% maple, and then the others that join the crowd. So every fall, at about, it's not quite going yet, but very soon as the days kind of lengthen out, the temperatures cool down, everything starts to turn bright red and orange in my hometown with a throw in of bright yellows. And as you drive down the streets, the color is so mesmerizing, you almost forget to look down where you're driving, because each tree, as you move down the block, is just even more beautiful than the one before it. And sometimes you have to stop and take pictures of those trees. And so the maple leaf block that I'm using in our project today is kind of reminiscent. It tells the story of my maple. That hometown base, that bright autumn blaze of color that comes out in nature each fall. So we're going to be working on making and how to make that block really efficiently, and then how to use it on a tea towel. You could use it to trim the side of a placemat. Think of this as kind of a jumping off spot, a place where you want to kind of show off the color collection of fabrics that you may have, so that you can have a little bit of that autumn feel in your place, in your home also. So jump in and tell us where you're watching from. Let me know what if you're that pumpkin spice person. We've got, let's see, Jenny saying hello from Arizona. Esther is popping in from the Netherlands. We are glad you're here. Kelly from Arizona is here. And we love it when our international quilters, the quilters from all over the United States follow. And those names that pop in, and when you join us, become part of our quilt community. We enjoy color together, and we enjoy the patchwork and the ideas that we share. And that's what brings us together as a quilt community. So once you've downloaded your pattern, you're going to find some real simple directions, some simple diagrams, but the supply list is, these are the kind of things as follows. And literally, this is how I created this. I went looking for the scraps. in my sewing room, because in my studio, I hate to get rid of fabric. If there's little pieces, they might just become part of a project. So Barbara says, good morning from Victoria, Canada. Linda's popping in from Alexandria, Virginia. We've got Amanda from Ontario, Canada. The fall colors there have already begun, and that I can believe because you're further north. I now live kind of in the bottom third of the state of Iowa. I used to live in the very top tier of counties in the state, and there's about a week or two lag between the two. So I'm going to be going up to my hometown later this week, and the colors may have started popping already. We've got Donna saying hello from North Carolina, Cecilia from Kentucky. We are glad that you're joining us. I started pulling out, I wanted a light background so that my leaf really popped out. So I went and found a scrap, literally, some small pieces work. This is was extra to do one block. And some extra. So, those little strips of 1/8 yards you might want to do scrappy background. If you made a quilt in the past that had whites or creams in it, or even a light taupe color, maybe put them together as a scrappy, kind of like the light reflecting through the leaves on a tree. Janice says hello from Northeast Ohio. We are glad. Linda says, I love pumpkin spice. Perfect. Let's see. That's got us caught up there. Then I started digging through my reds and autumny colors. I used a little batik of a gold that looks like a little leaf, the burnt oranges, some kind of watercolor reds, because some of the maple trees do pick up a really dark red, depending on which kind of maple tree you have. A burnt orange, some even just some dark fabrics that have oranges and golds in them. Then they're a little bit of a lighter orange. And I picked up a green, a dark forest green to do the stem on the leaf. So my scraps were perfect for creating the little pieces, because we're going to cut, okay, dare I say, 1.5 inch squares. I know they're tiny, but you can do it. You only have to make 3 little blocks. And when you go small in your piecing, it really gets you to sharpen your 1/4 inch seam accuracy and your cutting skills. So by doing a small project with small pieces, you can practice those skills, and I know you can do it. Connie says hello from Montana. Sarah is saying greetings from Northwest Arkansas. Her maple tree will be turning soon. I've got one in my front yard too. I made my husband plant a maple tree in honor of my hometown in the front of our yard, because we didn't have one. And it's one of the last trees to start to turn in the neighborhood. The silver maples like to go bright yellow, but my maple tree likes to bring in some oranges and reds to my neighborhood too. Jill says hello from Minnesota. And Sheila says, good morning from Alabama. We are so glad that you're joining us. Now, you've got your scraps in place. The one thing you will need, also, I picked up a burnt kind of orange brick color as the framing on this. You could go brown, you could do a dark green, whatever you feel frames your blocks well. And the other thing that you will need is some toweling or a base to your towel. Now, a shout out to Bluffview Quilt Shop in Winona, Minnesota. I ran across this on a bolt. Well, it's on a roll is the way they sell it. And they sell it by the yard. And this is called toweling, okay, for kitchen towels. And it's already hemmed on 2 sides. So it's rolled onto a spindle like this. So you can buy as much or as little as you would like. And so I purchased about 1 yard or so of this, knowing that I have 2 sides already hemmed. Yay, 2 sides I don't have to work with. Then I just have to decide how I wanted to make my band on my towel and then finish off the last side. So I'll hold it up for everyone to see. These are the left and right edges are the 2 finished edges of the toweling. I had to finish this off, which is simple. Just do it like binding. So keep that in mind. You'll have that last edge to finish. And we're creating this band along the bottom that then you can hang in your kitchen and show off your fun piecing skills. So toweling. I looked today. They still have it available, at least in a couple of colors, this one and one other. So shout out to Bluffview Quilt Shop in Winona, Minnesota for providing inspiration for me. Actually, I bought this last year when we were traveling in the fall, and I found out today they still have it available. So the toweling makes it easy to put that band just on one side. But if you don't have this available, what you could do is purchase one of the cotton kind of kitchen towels that you find in any big box store or department store. And you could just remove one side, one edge of the towel and replace it with this banding, if that's what you would like to do. If you want to start with toweling from the original, this pattern is set up perfectly for you to get started. So the toweling is kind of it's a heavier cotton weave. You could also just use a piece of broadcloth from your stash. You could pick a linen-y style fabric, anything that you want as that towel portion. It may not be an actual towel you use. It might be more of a decorative towel. So keep that in mind as you decide what piece you want to put with your patchwork. Hello, Sandy from Austria. We are glad that you're joining us. It's fun to see names come in. Vera says hello from Brazil. Nancy says good morning, watching from Central New York. Pumpkin ice cream. Ooh, I might have to try that. That actually sounds kind of good. I love cinnamon, so it's got the spice into ice cream. Interesting. Amanda says she joined in late, but we're downloading the pattern somewhere. Yes, in the comments. After we're finished, you can slide up to in through the comments and find it there, or on the screen there'll be a QR code. You can just pause the video because you get to watch the video as many times as you want. You can always then shoot the QR code off the screen there. So that's how you can get to the pattern. Good question. Now, we also need just a little bit of batting if you prefer to put it in there. And we always have scraps of batting. I hate to throw anything away. So a 5-inch by 16.5-inch batting piece. I did actually put a layer of batting into that band on my towel, but you could use just a layer of cotton, or you could leave it out altogether if you'd like it to be a little more sheer or lightweight in the finish. But because I wanted to stitch in the ditch to make it look a little quilty, I wanted that batting in there just for a little loft in my project, okay? The other things, basically rotary cutter mats, rulers, a fabric marking pen, spray-based, glue-based. If you prefer putting that batting in, it just helps keep things in place. Those are the basic things that we need. So let's look at how to put together the anatomy of the maple leaf block, because it is fairly simple, but always be thinking about direction when we're putting our units together to make sure that we kind of keep our maple leaf consistent. Okay, these are going to be 1-inch finished squares. So they are tiny. Like I said, you can do it. You're only making 3 of them. You're going to be cutting background squares, one in just as a square here, and then you're going to be cutting 2 other sizes. Those you needed for the half square triangle, and those as cheater corners here on the stem piece of the background fabric. Then in your colors, your scrappy golds, oranges, browns, yellows, rust kind of things, you're going to need a few squares for the body of the leaf. And then we're going to cut some squares that we're going to use to make our half square triangles. So let's work our way through the maple leaf block. The fun part of this is getting to use up all those scrappy fabrics, all those things maybe from past projects that you really enjoyed. And then it just kind of puts a little bit of a memory into your block of, oh, I remember making that. So I'm going to select 3 pieces for this portion of our leaf. There's this 3 squares, I'm sorry, 3 squares here that go together as the body. we've got our one little square of light background, but then we need to create those half square triangles and our leaf, our stem portion of our block. So I kind of feel like sometimes I'm dealing cards as I'm laying pieces out. I've already used the gold for that in the body, so I'm going to try and see if I've got enough scrappy other pieces here that I can, and I probably will end up using that really good gold because maybe let's put the gold in there anyway. We can always position it. It's always a glimmer, you know. Every leaf I remember as a kid on the playground in the fall, going through and picking up the most beautiful leaves that we could find and making like a leaf bouquet for our teachers. So whenever you find those really pretty ones, it's almost like you just can't let it sit on the ground. You have to pick it up and just be mesmerized by how beautiful the color is. Now we need the light that go with them. And we're going to be doing the 2 at a time half square triangle method so that we're making enough half squares for a couple of the blocks at a time. So you can sit down. It tells you exactly how many of each to cut in the pattern, but we're going to take a fabric marking tool for the 1/4-inch seam marker. There are different kinds on the market. You can use a regular ruler for this also. I think for the first 2 or 3 months of my quilt journey, no one told me about a 1/4-inch seam marker, and I was just using the normal ruler to mark and then stitch 1/4 inch on each side. But you can use a tool like these. They are exactly 1/2 inch wide, and by placing these on the light fabric, because we're going to pair a light with each of the darker colors for the leaf points, you put it corner to corner on the block. And these are bevel cut on the end so it fits right into the corner of your square. And then by using a fabric marking tool or you can use a mechanical pencil, works great also. This is all marked on the back side of the fabric so that you're going to mark corner to corner like this. And then you're going to put right sides together with your prints. And you're going to stitch on both of those lines. Now, if you are really good at your 1/4-inch seam, you can just mark the diagonal and stitch on both sides. But some of us kind of need training wheels, or we want to be just kind of more mindless in our sewing, and so that we can talk and sew at the same time. It's sometimes nice to have those lines so that you can just stitch right on the line or just a tiny bit toward the center of that. Gives you just a little wiggle room so that your piecing is accurate. Amanda says, there's the link to the free pattern we reposted. So let's see. Lisa says, watching from a quilt retreat. Yay. It is the season for quilt retreats. Fall is the time everybody wants to go off and get together with their quilt friends and have some fun for probably 3, 4, 5 days, maybe even a week if you're lucky. I haven't been to a quilt retreat in a while. They are very energizing. Sometimes we don't get a lot of sewing done, but we get a lot of visiting done, and we come up with a lot of inspiration. So let's see. Tina, watching from Lafayette, Louisiana. Wonderful. Okay, I am going to go in and do some sewing here with our, whoops, I don't need 2 prints underneath my light fabric. 1 light marked with diagonal rows per print. And we're going to do some quick chain piecing here. One thing that if I can set things up so that I can chain piece and don't have to break thread, it's kind of like those days when you, as a kid, did those puzzles where can you trace this line without raising your pencil once? I love those kinds of puzzles. And so I think that's why I like to challenge myself to see if I can piece as many units as possible without breaking thread. The whole cleanup thing of having threads and messy tails on the back of my piecing just is not my preference. So I like to see if I can just piggyback one after the other and well, with the price of thread nowadays, even thread can be expensive. And I can easily get through a line of this. And now, instead of breaking thread here, I like to go in, clip to take that chain of pieces. I only have one tail of thread I need to trim. And I can start on the second side of my pieces. They're all linked one behind the other, so they easily just run into the machine. All I have to do is do the guiding portion and just make sure I stay on the line. Now remember, I left one under the machine earlier, so that means this one way back here needs to get finished. So I will drive him into the bunch, and then I have 8 half square triangles all ready to go to be pressed and cut apart, and very little trimming to be done. So I'm going to pop these apart with a scissor quick here. Just little thread tails that don't really matter at this point. I don't have to do much trimming. And making sure that my iron is hot, I'm going to go in. See, I've got these all stitched together. I'm going to go in and press them flat. Then I'm going to take a scissor or a rotary cutter, whichever you prefer, cut down between my seams, and then I can open them up and have all these wonderful half square triangles ready to go for my block. So press flat. Try not to skip those little steps because they really do help keep your patchwork looking precise and accurate and flat. I know there are times when we're like, oh, I don't want to get up. I want to keep sewing. But it's also good for us to remember to get out of the chair and move, because being in not active is really bad for our bodies. So now I have them pressed flat. Now I'm going to go in. I'm just going to use the scissors, cut them apart so that I have all my half square triangles, or at least a large portion of them. I don't have all of them ready, but we're just making one maple leaf block right now. And, you know, if the quarter seam isn't perfect at this point, it won't matter. Okay, I'm going to back this up so you can see what I'm up to. Try to keep things neat and tidy. Do as I say, not as I do. Sometimes my workspace gets just a little messy. Now I'm going to open these up. I'm going to press toward the darker fabric like that. And then, because the ironing board is nice and warmed up, I'm going to lay the next one in place. And that way the heat from the ironing board will come up along with the heat from the iron and keep everything nice and pressed crisp. And I don't have to move that hot fabric. And I can get all of my pieces ready to go. Now, all we will have left on here is some tails, a little dog ears, if you want to call them that. Other people have other names for those little triangles that stick out the ends that need to be trimmed. I have 2 left. I ran out of ironing board space. 1 and 2. Now we can lay those in place. It's always good to kind of keep a visual of where you're headed. So I'm going to trim my dog ears. You can do them after if you prefer, but keeping track using your pattern, the picture on there to keep the orientation correct. And these are going to need to be trimmed just a tiny bit. I lost there's my ruler. I think, if I remember right, these I oversized just so that I could trim them, because when you're making patchwork that's this tiny, it can get a little wonky as you go. So by oversizing them just a bit, you can make a perfect patchwork. Now, the 1-inch square, 1.5 is what you're going to need. So I've got my 1 inch by 1 inch. Some of you use a ruler that has 1/2 inches on some edges and full inches in the other. I'm a person who tends to put the 1 by 1 top right corner and then line up. Well, I should line this actually with the diagonal so that I can see it too. The diagonal line on the ruler on the diagonal seam that you just created, so you know that the seam will go corner to corner. You could trim just 2 sides if you prefer. if your block is fairly straight. This one isn't absolutely perfect, and I kind of like taking that centerpiece out so that I always call it like the center of the cinnamon roll, the juicy part, the perfect, tender, exact piece that I need for my patchwork. So by doing that little bit of trimming, you can get your perfect blocks. Again, or making small pieces by, this one wasn't too bad. I can just trim 2 sides on this one. Nice. That's kind of a little benefit that pops up once in a while when things come out the way you want them to. Let's use this nice bright red as one of the triangles. But this is one little trick that you can do to make that smaller patchwork come out really precise. No one has to know that you trimmed your pieces. That's a secret for us as quilters. Okay, now make sure you place it properly so these little triangles of color are kind of making a kiss across the corner there. I've got one left to put in place. Oh, those 2 sides are pretty good. I can trim just 2 sides on this one. And take the little dog ear off. And again, making sure that the diagonals are all going the same direction. That way, it doesn't look like your leaf has been twisted in the wind. Okay, we've got those ready to go. All we need to do is create a stem portion. So the stem is made from a 1.5 inch square of the green. And we have 1 3/8 inch squares of the cream. Yes, they don't match in size. The reason being, we're going to put flippy corners on 2 of the corners and leave a stem down the center. This is kind of one of those piecing shapes that you're like, well, how do I cut that little tiny? Yes, it could be an applique. That's one approach. This is the approach I took by putting a flippy corner on each side, opposite corners. I can leave behind that nice green little piece to create the diagonal I need. So I took 2 light background squares. I've marked them corner to corner. I'm going to put one on at a time and stitch corner to corner. Now, get my needle in the center position so that I can just follow my marked line. If you, this is a time when your sewing machine decides it should eat the fabric and not make a pretty piece. So let's try another one. That's why a lot of times on this machine, I will use a spider, which is just a little scrap of fabric, so that my sewing machine has a place to start. So I am going to take a scrap of fabric from my scraps. There we go. And since this is not a really high-end fancy machine, it likes to have something to bite into to start. So if your machine is one of those that likes to eat your fabric, this is the way around it. Put a little piece of fabric under the presser foot, take a few stitches, let your machine say, oh, I have a place to land, then start your patchwork. Now, if I position this right, here we go. Now, as I drive off one fabric and onto the other, it doesn't decide to be so hungry. There we go. Cut thread. Now, if I were making all 3 of the stems at once, I could do a little bit of chain piecing, but in this case, we're just making one. Once I have that seam created, I'm going to go to the iron and I'm going to press and open this because the rest of the cream color fabric is kind of in the way of where my second seam needs to ride. So I've got it pressed flat. I'm going to press it open to one side. So my green is down here this longer. I'm going to press this open so the green shows, and make sure that you open that all the way up to your seam line. And I'm going to do a quick press. And then I'm going to put the second one on. So I had one marked. Oh, it is marked. Wrong side of the fabric. Okay, there we go. There's my marked one. I'm going to put it on the remaining green side so that my seams will parallel to each other, leaving behind that green stem portion. And if you would like your stem to be a little wider, you could even make the background square a little smaller, but totally up to you. Actually, the stem on a leaf is very, very fine. It's tiny compared to the leaf portion. That's why I didn't want to do it as an applique. Usually when a quilter says applique, most quilters just go la, 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 la. They don't want to hear about it. So piecing instead, I've got my seam there. I'm going to set that seam. Oh, there we go. I'm going to open it up so the one triangle covers the other. So I've got it stitched there. I'm going to open it up, press again. So that reveals that green diagonal of my piecing. Then I'm going to take a scissor and I am going to trim off the underneath layers, one cream, one green, and leave behind approximately a 1/4 inch seam allowance. The piecing is already done, so the seam allowance width isn't so critical, but we're leaving behind a little seam there. And then I'm going to kind of double check, because again, we're working with small pieces, that my piece stayed, I think slid a little bit. So I'm going to trim to make sure that I get it at the 1.5 inch. I wasn't super precise on my placement, but I do have my stem portion ready to go there. And then it's placing that stem so that it goes at the same angle as your half square triangles. Okay, so before you start stitching together, double check to make sure your angles are all going the same slant. And then it's just a 9 patch. The nice part about making something like this is that we can make all the units, but we get down to something really familiar and we know the construction from there. Let's see. Wendy says hello from Vermont, and Elizabeth is here from Nova Scotia. Shirley is watching from Saskatchewan, and Kathy says good morning from Colorado. Perfect. We are glad you're here. Now, the easy part about this is just 9 patch construction so that you can create your block very easily. I tend to pick up my pieces, the center row, lay them right sides together with the first column, and then I will stitch all of these together and then come back and press and then pick up the third column. And I'm working from my left to right. So then I add the next 3, make a column, and then stitch the last pieces together. As you're making your 9 patch blocks, it's kind of fun. You can be very scrappy, or you can repeat each of your blocks in the color placement. I decided scrappy was best. So all 3 of my maple leaves all look a little like God created them and not me. I tend to be a very symmetrical repeat kind of thing, and I let them be more scrappy in this case, just so they look more lifelike. So create 3 of those blocks. Then you're going to be using some of that background fabric, whatever you decide to pick. I wouldn't pick something super busy in its print. Not too many multicolor, unless you think that your blocks, if you lay them on that super busy fabric, do they pop or do they kind of get lost in the leaf stack? I decided that by picking something more neutral color, it let the actual patchwork, where I put most of my work, be more the story here. So there are 2 bars, there are rectangles that join together the 2 blocks. And then I actually cut squares, though they look like rectangles here. There's a square on each end. And that gave me a little room, and it gives you room in case your toweling happens to be a little bit different width. If if it's a little tiny bit wider. It also gives you a little bit of wiggle room in case your piecing happens to be a bit different than mine. And that way you've created a square, a patchwork square, rectangle, patchwork square, rectangle, your patchwork, and then a square of background here. So this is a channel that you put together. And then there is a bar at the top and the bottom, which is just a simple piece like this at the top and bottom. It looks like you've made a mini runner. So in your head, you can visualize making just a mini table runner. Now, when it comes to connecting this to the toweling, the towel portion, oh, do remember that you are cutting 3 of these. One is going to be used over here to finish off the other side of your towel. So when you get done doing your patchwork portion, you aren't quite done. You have to remember to go back and finish that raw edge, that cut edge there. Now, when you go to put your patchwork piece on here, you've got your patchwork, you've got your batting, if you're inserting batting, which you lay underneath. So they are layered one on top of the other. And that's where the spray base comes in handy, or a little bit of glue stick to help hold it in place. Then there is a fabric, and you can see there's a fabric on the back. You have to have a backing to every project. Every quilt has a back. So in the instructions, it will tell you the direction to stack these up so that you put the batting on the back of here. But you're going to attach, I should say, first, you're going to attach this. You're going to lay it right side together with your toweling. Make sure you look for what you're seaming here on the edges so that it's rolled to the back side. You're going to lay their patchwork piece on and stitch this to the toweling. Then you're going to add, and you work your way through the instructions of how to put that backing piece on there, which then envelops all the seams. The seams will be pushed to kind of like a pocket on the back. It's turned, and then everything's encased. And that's when I went back then and did some very simple 1/4 inch outlining. I did some crisscrosses on the squares of the actual maple leaf themselves. And I did do in the ditch. A lot of times we think, well, it's kind of cheating to stitch in the ditch. But it actually gives lift to the project, and it gives it a very good outline to your shape. So by doing some simple ditch stitching around that block, you can kind of give it that quilty feel to it. So let's see. It would be great on a pillowcase. Yes, it would. That would be a perfect thing. You could create bands like this on the ends of pillowcases to give kind of an autumn feel to a room. Let's see. That was a really good idea, Amanda. Esther says, I love the idea of using scraps to make new and nice things, something new. Yes, those little tiny pieces that doesn't take much to do something like this, but it looks like you went and collected a whole bunch of fabrics. But if you're already kind of done some autumn projects and haven't thrown all of your scraps away, this is the perfect place to use up those pieces. And when you get to the tinies, remember the really tinies, that's when it's okay to throw away your leftover pieces. Let's see. I think that's everyone who's asked questions this morning here. Maybe afternoon, maybe good evening where you're watching from. So download the pattern. If you are inspired to make something My Maple kind of inspiration, maybe it's on a towel, maybe it's on a pillow, maybe it's on the ends of a table runner. Thanks for joining me today.